Good evening. This is the June 26, 2025 meeting of the Villa Park Bike, Pedestrian and Transit Sub-Committee. This is Alan Leishman speaking, and I am calling this meeting to order at 6:05 p.m. Commissioner Greco, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Greco is here. Commissioner Amore?
Present.
Commissioner Leishman?
Present.
And Commissioner Wagner has indicated he will be a few minutes late.
So we'll be seeing him soon. We're going to move on to item 2 on the agenda, public comments. We do have a member of the public here with us this evening. Could you please introduce yourself? And yeah.
Yes, thank you. Patrice Gallagher, 36 South Monterey Avenue, Villa Park, Illinois, 60181.
Thank you. Do you have any comments for us this evening?
I do. I have 3 comments. And
Okay.
thank you for having public comments towards the top. It's appreciated when it's not your commission. I want to make a comment publicly about the Monday night meeting. It was very unexpected. I think there was a lot of shock in the room. I personally heard everyone's distress and comments about how important their commissions mean to them. And I believe this is correctable and solvable. And I like being in the solution. And my commission was dissolved as well. And so those are my comments. Staying in the solution.
Okay.
About that one. So the other 2 that I have are, okay, when I'm on my bike, on my bike going to Jewel on the Great Western Trail, and you come out of the Great Western Trail at Ardmore, and then you're gonna navigate your way over to Jewel. It's really funky there, especially if there's traffic on Ardmore, because you come out and then you have to really pay attention. You have to come down a curb cut and then out into some alley that belongs to maybe Jewel, and then get back on. And some people might say, well, then get off your bike and walk it to that. But bicyclists don't want to do that. We want to stay on our path like cars want to stay on theirs. So my solution to that would be to have a quite simple, just making that into a level path. It's safe for the bicyclist. It'll encourage people to ride their bikes to get their groceries. So that's my comment about that.
And yes, I've done that many times, so I can picture exactly what you're
Yes.
saying.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Please.
If I'm picturing it right in my mind, I think that is the alley that is owned by Public Works, right? Like behind
It might be.
Jewel.
Yes.
I believe that is, yes, an area owned by Public Works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is a little weird and zigzaggy
Yeah.
doing it.
And then when there's a lot of traffic, sometimes I'll just kind of be too close to the cars to navigate around. It's just too many things at once for safety for a bicyclist. So,
And I had a question. Now, you're traveling westbound.
yes, sir.
You're not crossing Ardmore.
Exactly. Thank you. That was a good clarification. Yes, traveling westbound from Villa Park, from like Villa Avenue.
Traveling west, heading north on
Yes.
Ardmore.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, may I move on to the next comment?
Of
course.
Okay, I knew the day would come when I'd have to speak up about all the electric bikes on the Prairie Path. Oh my God. It may have been discussed here, I don't know. So many towns now have adopted, unfortunately, restrictions. I have not wanted to pipe up because I want to see people on their bikes. I don't care if they're electric bikes. It's very important to me that people aren't in their homes sitting, looking at the screen. But I had 2 incidences, and the time has come. I like to ride at night, and that's when the teenagers like to ride at night. And I mean, there's a couple of them, they're just tearing out. And I don't blame them, I would have too, done the same thing. And they're going way too fast on, these bikes now are looking like motorcycles. And is that a motorcycle or just a fat tire bike with with an electric thing? And then there were 2 groups of teenagers in separate parts of the path on last Tuesday night. And they were completely taking over the path, having fun like teenagers do. I want them to be outside. But one group, I always say, move to your right? So I stay on my right. And I got a snarky comment, and they didn't move, and what occurred was, like, my bike got caught with something of theirs and I fell, never have fallen in 20 years. I really messed up my left foot. You know what it's like when you hurt yourself and then at night it keeps you awake? It was one of those things.
Oh, yeah.
But it healed well, but the time has come. And my solution and offering would be taking baby steps. And I think perhaps we have signage with miles per hour and some kind of communication, whether it's via sign, via the website, to the parents of the kids. Because it's mainly the teenagers that are causing these things. So those are my comments. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a lot of conversation around electric bikes and electric scooters in town right now, and so I think that'd be a great addition to our next meeting, should this commission continue.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, sorry.
Chairman Leishman, so actually I was going to make a motion to, when we get to it, to amend the agenda.
Okay.
To maybe have a brief discussion about e-scooters and e-bikes as well.
I mean, we can discuss it. I don't think
we can't take any action.
We can't
on it.
take an action on it.
Right,
this evening,
exactly,
'cause it's
but-
not on the agenda.
Yeah,
but-
Elk Grove, Schaumburg, other communities,
Yes. Oh,
like
yes.
Yeah,
Patricia said, have, made a lot of.
right.
Sure. Yeah, if you're prepared to talk about that tonight, I'd be
I
happy.
mean, I'm not, I just wanted to throw it out there as a possible, just
Okay.
for maybe a 5-minute discussion,
Yeah.
to come back next month.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, speaking of that, moving on to
Oh, well, man.
yeah,
It's
Commissioner
all right.
Greco.
Yeah, oh, thank you. I do believe there is discussions in Springfield about statewide rules too, am I correct?
There's a law about it. They passed a law.
Okay,
Has it
so,
been signed, or has it been signed into law, or?
It's signed into law.
Oh.
That's why all these communities are starting to enact
Okay.
their own ordinances. Yeah, class 3s cannot be on the path, and e-scooters, I believe by state law, you have to be over 18.
Oh.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
kind of very strict, since you can get a permit when you're 16, I believe.
yeah.
A car permit, yeah.
Sorry, can I ask that we discuss this at
Absolutely.
another
No, you're
point in
right.
the
Oh,
agenda?
thank you, yes. I wanted to encourage the public, but yes.
Yeah, thank you for speaking and attending. Let's go on to item 3, amendments to the agenda. Are there any proposed amendments to tonight's agenda?
I would just like to put on for a brief discussion, obviously, no action, e-scooters and e-bikes.
Okay, where would you like to place that in the agenda?
We can put it at the end after community outreach.
Would you like to put it at the top while our members of the public are here?
Sure, we can do that, that's fine, yeah.
Okay.
If my motion passes.
Yes.
E-scooters and,
E-bikes.
So we have a motion on the table to add discussion of e-scooters and e-bikes as a item before item 5A. Is there a second for the motion?
oh, yes.
And who would that be?
That would be Commissioner Greco.
Second by Commissioner Greco. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of amending the agenda to add an item to discuss e-scooters and e-bikes before item 5A, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The motion holds, and we have amended the agenda. All right. Item 4, approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Commissioner Wagner?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the May 22nd, 2025 minutes. And I would also like to thank Commissioner Greco for her good work.
Well, thank you.
And I would like to second that motion. Commissioner Moore.
Caught up?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry,
Okay.
yes, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
No,
I didn't
no.
realize you were waiting for me.
We were throwing a lot of things at you, and I wanted to make sure you're good. Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Now we'll go on to the new item 5A, e-scooters and e-bikes. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. I think I may have mentioned, when I went to the Illinois Bike and Pedestrian Summit down in Springfield, there was a person or people with bikes who had made a presentation about e-bikes. And e-bikes, I think generally across the country, class 3 are not allowed on trails because they can achieve a certain speed. And I may have mentioned this as well, the League of American Bicyclists does have a curriculum for e-bikes. I have not gone through it, but I think it would be, as we do smart cycling, maybe to incorporate e-bikes. And I don't know, I did a really quick check online to see if there's any, safety tutorials for e-scooters. I just saw some really basic stuff. And my experience is very much like Patrice's experience. There just are more and more of them on the street. And I'll just relate, and I'm gonna sound like someone who's complaining here, but I was going eastbound on Madison. Another car was coming westbound. I was going 25 miles an hour. Here comes a group of young guys, I don't know how old they were, but they were teenagers, a group of them on e-bikes and on e-scooters, and one kid he was on an e-bike, he got up on his seat, and he was like, doing a trick, and then they went between our two cars. I'm going eastbound, the other car is going westbound. I think there are 4 or 5 of them, they go between us. And I see more and more of that, and it's just, I don't know if I suspect there's a higher incidence of accidents with e-scooters because people, and I see them late at night. Some have lights, some don't. So, I should also tell you that traffic and safety is looking at this as well. So, and we don't know how long traffic and safety will be around, but anyways. I just think it's really would be good for us to maybe provide some guidance, maybe guidance for traffic and safety. To say, okay, we think you should restrict e-bikes and e-scooters in certain parts of town. That's what the city of Chicago does, because they have a big e-scooter, the e-scooters are everywhere in the city. Restrict them, they tell them, they recommendation to wear a helmet, and I wanted to experience an e-scooter. I couldn't find anywhere in our DuPage area. You had to go into the city for a place that sells them and you can test drive them. But I went to Best Buy. Best Buy has a whole, section for e-bikes, and one of them will go 28 miles an hour. So I asked the salesperson, do you tell people, how you have to be a certain age? Well, I don't know about that, I'm just here to sell scooters, whatever.
Right.
He's there to sell merchandise. So they're out there. There's more and more of them. And I think to be responsible, I think we should regulate them because it's just going to get worse.
Can you back up just a bit? I think you had made some specific suggestions a little bit earlier about things to do besides just regulate.
I think to develop some sort of safety or smart scootering. I don't know.
Safety education.
Safety education. Yeah, safety education, and I think restrictions as to where they can be. Just like the city of Chicago, they have a map for the to say they can't be in this area. You're not supposed to be there. No, they'll ticket you. But I was just in Lincoln Park today, and they're all over the place. And I'm wondering if they're squeezing Divvy bike out because a lot of people are on e-scooters, and I don't know how they leave them. I guess you can leave them wherever you want. Pretty much, there's no docking station. There's no docking station like a Divvy bike.
They're supposedly, I guess they go into a community and sell it to the community, because I know I travel east on St. Charles. This is Commissioner Maury, by the way. And there's a company called
Bird.
and they leave them everywhere. You just take it to where you're going, you get off, and somehow they track them and recover them and recharge them and find a new home for them.
Yeah, I am often surprised at how careless people are about where they leave them, in the middle of sidewalks.
Commissioner Wagner, I believe that the village of Bellwood may have had an
Back-
agreement.
I
But
believe that is.
they had an agreement with Bird, but they
I haven't seen
Did
them
away
lately. I have not seen them lately,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they might have.
Commissioner Greco?
Since we're discussing it, one of the things we can talk about at the next meeting as well is maybe have a couple of safety events around the time when they're out. Invite the police to join us, not necessarily to give tickets, but to just educate
Right.
these groups of people who are riding recklessly and potentially illegally.
Commissioner
This
Moore?
is Commissioner Maury. So I believe our police department does have a bicycle officer, or more than one. And maybe they could have some type of e-bike rodeo where they could have, sponsored by the manufacturers who could stress safety awareness while they might have a professional rider, showing how things should be done. And we could have an educational effort as far as, because maybe, you said traffic safety
yeah.
is considering
right.
is this a proposed ordinance for the board to consider?
Well, let me just kind of back. I knew the board was talking about it. I heard, I listened to the discussion. 2 trustees did not want to allow e-scooters. So e-scooters, e-bikes. There's also other micro-mobility forms, I don't know how to describe them.
I saw an e-unicycle
They're boards,
once.
huh?
I saw an e-unicycle.
E-unicycle.
And the guy was splitting lanes on the
Yeah.
highway and
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you see them in the city. So it's kind of something that's kind of exploding in a way. But I think dealing with e-bikes and e-scooters is a good start.
right.
I mean, I personally, I think it's important for us all to remember that, like, at least my opinion, it's a good thing that these forms of transportation are expanding because, like, that is less people driving cars on the road. That makes it safer for cyclists. It makes it safer for pedestrians. Obviously, you don't want people to drive recklessly, but if you're going to have teenagers driving recklessly, I would rather them doing it at 20 miles an hour on a bicycle than doing it at 60 miles an hour in a car.
Exactly.
So I think that's just an important thing to keep in the back of our mind during these discussions is, riding these devices isn't something we should necessarily be discouraging, but we should be encouraging them to do it safely.
Safely and responsibly.
Commissioner Moore?
And this is Commissioner Maury, and I wanted I was going to add into what you said. Remembering that we're a subcommittee of the Environmental Concerns Commission, I will take any mode of transportation that doesn't have an internal combustion engine as a priority. And years ago, when I was a dad raising up my kids, I encouraged them to be the generation that learned to get around without cars. Public transportation, bicycles, rollerblades, which were popular at the time. Because I wasn't going to buy 3 teenagers cars. It just wasn't going to happen. I just don't have, didn't have those kind of deep pockets. And for their, they did spend more time out of the vehicle, getting around. They took Metro and CTA downtown. They got around. The first car my stepson bought was a Prius. Only because he had to get around, long distances, but at least he still was trying to be sustainable.
Right, yeah.
So I agree, we should not discourage because we don't want to see them banned. We want to make sure they're I would imagine that whatever legislation is passed that would regulate them, if the village takes on its role in enforcing the ordinances, there may be a possibility of confiscation, which most parents would find disappointing because they're the ones that are probably expensing these things. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, so what I'm hearing from this is it sounds like we're in agreement that this is something that we as a commission should have an opinion on. So if it's all right with everyone, maybe I will do a little bit of research between now and our potential next meeting. Find out what other towns are proposing or have done, what has been successful both in terms of the regulation side as well as the education side, and maybe I'll draft a potential letter for us to write to traffic and safety and/or board of trustees. How does that sound to people?
I like it, and we can tweak it and discuss it. But I could see some collaborative. They recommend certain ordinance changes, and we work with them to provide events for education or something. Just I'll stop talking now.
No, you're fine. You have the floor.
No, I know, but we only have an hour, and we have some more agenda items. So.
And I have on a completely separate issue, the village manager for Hinsdale came to the Traffic and Safety Commission meeting, and she forwarded an ordinance that they enacted, and I can share that with you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Oh, she was at our traffic and safety meeting?
What's that?
She was at our traffic and safety meeting?
Yes. She lives in Villa Park.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, she came about an issue on Euclid Avenue, just north of Roosevelt Road.
Oh, I wrote down mayor, but it's village manager, you said.
Yeah, she's the village manager of Hinsdale.
Okay. And what was the document about?
It was about traffic calming devices, and it also was about their sample ordinance, the ordinance that
Oh,
they
okay.
enacted. Yeah.
Was this the ordinance about traffic calming or about bicycles?
Well, there was a document about traffic calming, but she sent the ordinance that they enacted about e-scooters and e-bikes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now I understand. If you could share that with us before the next meeting?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll send to everybody.
Okay. Any more discussion on the new item 5A? Okay, let's go on to the old item 5A, roadway crossing study. So I added this to the agenda because I know after Bike Month and all our other recent activities, it feels like a long time ago, but we as a commission were discussing as one of our goals, making a recommendation to the Board of Trustees about a pedestrian crossing that we'd like to improve the infrastructure of. And so I wanted to resume that conversation and just have a discussion largely about what data we have available to make that selection, what sort of questions we want to answer with that data, and just kind of outline the proposal for the study that we want to do, if that makes sense. And so I'm happy to talk through the data sources that I know we have available to us, and I would be happy to, if you guys have any other suggestions of information we can pull into this. But what I'd really appreciate your help with would be, what are the important questions here that we want to answer? Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Is that something you want to, should we put it on the next agenda and we can think about these things before then? Or is there more discussion we can have tonight?
Let's just have a conversation about the data that we do have access to. And maybe that will spark some ideas. So I think perhaps the oldest data that we have is, of course, the Bike Pedestrian Master Plan from 2018. That has it has an analysis of where both bike and pedestrian crashes have happened around town. Of course, that is dated as of 2018. As kind of a supplement to that, I think I've shown it to this commission before. I've done a little digging in my professional life into IDOT's public data around crashes. And so I have a few visualizations that go up through 2023. So that gives us 5 more years of data to add on to what's in the master plan. So that basically gives us a map of, unfortunately, where people have been hit before, both when they're on a bicycle or walking. We can use that to answer some questions. Things like, where are the most dangerous intersections? Where are people getting hit the most? Stuff like that. Where are people getting hurt the worst because the vehicles are traveling the fastest? Stuff like that. And then the other data that we have access to, which is much more recent, is the project sidewalk data that we as a community are still collecting. So that's kind of a little bit different information. That is not crash information. Instead, that is, what is the status of the infrastructure now? Where do we have curb ramps? Where do we have crossings? Stuff like that. And so that gives us more of a perspective of what is the status of things. Commissioner Morey?
This is Commissioner Morey. So one of the troubling aspects that I've had over the years with the village's position and policy on implementing crosswalks where there isn't a signaled intersection. For example, when Charles Avenue near St. Charles Road was redone a few years ago, a contractor came out and striped a crosswalk across Villa Avenue.
St. Charles?
At St. Charles. And within a week, they had come back out and grind the paint off the intersection. In fact, I just looked at my Google Maps, and you can still, if you expand it out, see the remnants of the lines that were painted there and then ground down. Okay? When I've asked Public Works, it seems that they have a policy where they do not want a crosswalk unless there's a signaled intersection where they have a pedestrian button with a signal and a countdown. Now, we're still behind in that technology because now newer technology is available where they have audible, for people who might be visually impaired, for people who are crossing. But then they go against whatever policy may be, like on Villa Avenue where the Salt Creek Greenway of Trails crosses at Thomas. They striped a crosswalk there and put up a sign that there's a trail crossing there.
Yeah.
A diamond sign. The law is very specific that pedestrians should only cross the crosswalks, and they only have the right of way if they step off the curb. That traffic is supposed to come to a stop. know whether there's a traffic signal there or not. It creates a lot of confusion, and this really I've advocated for a crosswalk at Euclid and St. Charles because St. Charles seems to be one of the places where they're needed the most, because it's a 4-lane highway with a center left turn lane. It's a long road to get across as a pedestrian. There's a lot of residential areas that butt up to St. Charles, so people are going across to get to the businesses there, whether it be Dairy Queen or a restaurant or a Jewel or whatever the case may be. So it creates a lot of conflicts. And it's really put an exclamation point on the other day. It was back a few weeks ago. I was driving eastbound on St. Charles. It was dusk. It was after sundown. And I was going eastbound, doing a speed limit, in the left lane, next to the center lane. And there was a family at the corner of Euclid, 2 families, because there was like 3 adults and like 5 kids. And even in the low light conditions, as I was approaching, the woman stepped off, and the little children and the 2 other adults started following her across. I literally had to lock up my brakes to keep from hitting anyone. There was, the fact of the matter is that, what do we do in that situation? You're doing everything correctly. Nobody got hurt. But then when I came to a stop, then she just kept going, and she brought them across, even though traffic going westbound on the opposite side hadn't gotten there yet. And they could have one or all of them could have been seriously hurt or worse.
Yeah.
So if the village has a policy on where they want to have these crosswalks to keep our businesses thriving, for example, like the Dairy Queen, the village did have them put a little barrier there so people wouldn't walk out into the drive-through lane.
We put bollards up.
Yeah.
That actually came before traffic and safety.
Yeah.
And the village put those bollards up.
So, if we're going to take a position on this, we have to find out if the village has a policy that specifies how and where they want these, so that we can argue for or against that policy. That's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Wagner?
Commissioner Wagner, so I've talked to Kevin Mantles, who's the liaison to traffic and safety, specifically about that crossing that was eliminated. But then there's another crossing, and you may be aware of it, on Villa Avenue, and I can't remember what street it is. There's a crosswalk, and the crosswalk goes across, and it goes to a driveway.
That's Thomas. That's at the south of the tracks.
Right.
Where the Salt Creek Greenway Trail
Right,
supposedly
and that's what he
crosses.
said, but he said it's not quite proper. And that's based on the MUTCD, which is the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which governs more than just traffic control devices.
Okay, what is the manual?
It's in the MUTCD,
I can look it up after that.
Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
MUTCD, okay.
Yeah, it's like planners, it's a Bible for planners.
Yeah.
It gives them, and they just recently revised it, and it tells them, where can you put a stop sign? When do you have to have a warrant study for a stop sign? It gives them a lot of advice.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
It's a guidebook. It's guidelines.
Huh?
Is it guidelines, or is it actually gotten statutory?
They're guidelines. Yeah, they're.
It's probably a manual of best practices.
It's a best practices, right?
Yeah, it's from the Department of Transportation, and so I suspect that if you're doing any sort of project that involves money from DOT, it has to meet
And
those
in fact,
standards.
Oh,
they
okay.
rolled it out. I can't remember who it was, National Traffic Safety Administration or somebody had a rollout for the new MUTCD.
Right. It's just like when they redid the St. Charles Road Bridge over Salt Creek. It had to be built in a certain manner to get the money, from the government to help pay for it.
I mean, I'm by no means an expert on traffic controls, but if I had to guess why they ground off the crossing on St. Charles, it's because it's kind of a chicken the egg problem where because it's a 5-lane road, people don't expect pedestrians to be crossing it, regardless of whether or not they're in a crosswalk. And so then most people don't feel safe crossing it. So then there's
Right.
adding a crosswalk doesn't necessarily solve that problem because people go so fast on St. Charles that I don't believe that a couple of white lines are really going to protect people. And so, it might be the sort of policy where if you are crossing a road that is as wide as St. Charles is, then you need to have some sort of indicator beacons or signals or, Whereas on Villa, that's only a 2-lane road, so then it's fine to just put some lines.
Right, and I mean, this is Commissioner Maury, and just for the record, I hate those flashing high visibility beacons. They cause more problems than not. I mean, because when you have cars approaching from different directions, and one stops to be a nice guy and the other one doesn't because no one's in the intersection yet, that just creates havoc.
I think that's driver education as much as anything. So, shoot, I was gonna say something. Oh, so there's the issue of crosswalks, but you were talking about questions that we want the data to answer.
Yeah.
I think it might be useful to understand how many people are crossing at that location. So are there a lot of people crossing, say, at Villa to get to Target? Is that a very popular, high pedestrian traffic area? Or how many people have to cross to get to Dairy Queen? So I think the safety accidents definitely would take precedence, I believe, but it still could be useful to know how many people are crossing as we're trying to prioritize which intersections to focus on.
Yeah, that is a very good question to ask. I think it's a good one to keep in mind. I think we're going to have to go to different data sources to find that, and so that'll be a fun little challenge for me to figure out because pedestrian traffic isn't something that is in Project Sidewalk or in really the crash data either. The one caveat that I'll add to that sort of question is that just because it is, once again, kind of a chicken and egg situation where the places where people are going to be crossing the most is both a function of where they want to cross and also where they feel safe crossing,
Right.
And so, anyway.
Right, I realize that data would be imperfect no matter what.
Oh, all data is imperfect.
And there's, but I mean less than other data because of the reasons you said.
Yeah.
And people aren't necessarily going to be open, and it's going to be hard to count people who are crossing where they aren't supposed to, without actually standing there for days on end and counting them. So
I wonder if Google Maps might have a public API of pedestrian data. I can look into that. Commissioner Maury?
Real quick, this is Commissioner Maury. So, on a previous project, IDOT governs North Avenue. So it's odd the way they have their priorities because there is a pedestrian crossing signal at Ardmore. There is one at Villa. I'm not sure farther west if there are any at Addison Road or any of the other streets, but at 83, which is a much more dangerous intersection, there's no pedestrian crossing infrastructure at all. There's no lines, there's no signals for pedestrians, there's nothing. Yep. And there's businesses there that people you would think would be wanting to go to, like the Goodwill store and the other new restaurants and things that are east of 83. So
even worse than that, at least on the south side of North Avenue, there is not a sidewalk once you hit Elmhurst. Mm-hmm. Regardless of whether or not you can cross 83, there's not a sidewalk.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. I know there was a time when that was literally the busiest intersection in Illinois. I
They
don't
have
know if that's
the high-
still
the
true
worst-
or not.
Yeah,
I think it was also the most dangerous. I think it was those
it's always in the top 10.
of dangerous
For-
or
for-
busy.
For accidents.
Oh, yeah.
Statewide.
Yeah, yeah.
And usually number one.
So adding pedestrians to that mix could actually, like you said, the chicken and egg, it could actually make it worse accident-wise, especially since so many people don't expect it. Is that in our jurisdiction
Nope,
anyway?
that's Elmhurst.
Okay then, yeah, too bad.
Not our pig, not our farm. Commissioner Wagner.
So the name escapes me, the engineering firm that's doing the Ardmore project, they had these Vision with the telescoping
Mhm.
cameras on top.
Yeah.
Which does collect pedestrian and bicycle data. And once again, Kevin Mantle said that the village had either purchased one or some, or was going to.
Cool.
So they may
Ooh.
be able to, if we wanted to say, okay, tell us what the pedestrian, I don't know what the cost is to do it, but.
Yep.
So perhaps we can get our own data. Okay.
I think,
And there's a company, a Canadian company that also does that too. That they have equipment that will measure pedestrians.
sure.
Can I clarify, when you said the village has purchased one or some, did you mean purchase the actual equipment or did you mean purchase the study?
Purchase the equipment.
Okay.
Yeah, the Vision, equipment, whatever.
I think it's good, very good for us to know about that. I think what makes sense in my mind is if we can narrow down the options and then ask, Public Works to strategically place a couple in certain locations if we have, a short list that we're looking at. So that's very good to know about. Okay, so I've got a couple questions that I've written down here for myself. We have, what is the village's policy on crossings? Which would be good for us to know. What does pedestrian traffic look like around town at that intersection? Can we get access to the Vision data along Ardmore? Or could we even collect some of that data ourselves using the village's newly acquired equipment? Another question that comes to my mind is how much would this proposed change cost? Because, putting a bunch of hazard lights to create a crossing across St. Charles might be a little bit less feasible for us as a commission versus, getting some white paint in one of the more residential neighborhoods. Commissioner Mori?
And this is Commissioner Mori, and I just wanted to add in that the number escapes me now, but Director Mark McLaughlin, when discussing the St. Charles proposal of putting it on a road diet, and when they were reducing the TIF, spoke very enthusiastically about his vision of someday having St. Charles with one lane in each direction, with a bicycle lane, which would make crossing much easier. So I would also, when you're discussing going to Public Works, finding out just how far away that might possibly be.
Many years.
Many years.
I already know the
It's
answer
in
to
the
that question.
plan. How much time do we invest in something that may all get shoved aside for a new plan?
I'm a big believer in doing small changes quickly, regardless of whether those are going to be overturned in 5 years or whatever.
I just sent you the screenshot of that St. Charles
Okay, thank you.
intersection.
Okay.
Any other discussion on item 5A? we are coming up towards the end of our allotted times, and we've got a lot of agenda to cover, so I think I'm
Yes.
going to call it there. Item 5B, Villa Avenue Improvement Project. Commissioner Amore.
Okay, in my notes, you, Chair Leachman, were gonna find out the status of the project. I am currently advocating for a review because they've extended the scope of the project. It was originally from Illinois 64 to St. Charles, it's now Illinois 64 to Wildwood. And because of that, I saw that as an opportunity to revisit the possibility of putting protected pathway along the east side of the villa between Thomas and Second Street. I stopped at Public Works, and they were supposed to have someone get back to me, because the basic thing is that whether we would at least have someone go out there and take a measurement of the available property, from the fence line of the two-page material to where the new property line for the road's paving, to know what parameters we can work within, the width of the crossing, where the infrastructure has been built up to go over the Union Pacific tracks, south of the tracks. If they take the measurements, because they have guidelines that they have to follow for lane widths and everything else, we can at least find out if it's possible. And no one's gotten back to me. So if you want to just put this back to a month from now, we can continue to gather information.
Yeah, I figured that this is just going to be a standing item on our agenda for a while. I apologize. I did not reach out to Public Works. I have had a rough couple of weeks, but
Apology accepted.
I will do that in the next month. And I did check earlier today, and there has not been an update on the website.
And I laid out my issues with the project at the Planning and Zoning meeting on the 12th. So if you want to go back and review the video, it came at the end of the meeting in the last 10 or 15 minutes.
And just to mention that the Traffic and Safety Commission will be meeting on Tuesday, July 1st. There was some question whether we would have a quorum or not, but as of now, we'll have a quorum.
Great, thank you. All right, let's go on to item 5C, District 88 Hazardous Road Update. Commissioner Greco?
Yes, I did reach out to District 88, the person who had reported that at their board meeting that certain routes near the school were declared unsafe. And she reported back that it is, they are considered hazardous routes as designated by IDOT, because that then allows the school to provide busing for students who live less than 1.5 miles from the school. So it just confirms, it's them confirming that it's safer for the students to take the bus.
Makes sense. Thank
you. Yes, so I mean, it's still something we can look at from a safety issue, but it's also being addressed as far as the high school students go.
Commissioner Amore?
Okay, this is Commissioner Maury, and I've reached out to the York Township Highway Commissioner, who is going to take a measurement of Reardon to see if there's the opportunity to put a protected lane on Reardon between Villa and Ardmore. A protected lane for pedestrians and cyclists on Reardon between Villa and Ardmore. It was recently repaved with a center line down the middle, but he's going to find out if it's possible to work that in, because I know under the comprehensive plan, there's a trail system envisioned for Ardmore.
Yeah.
I think it would be better to have that trail system jog over to along Reardon to Summit and then go south from Summit. And I'm waiting for a call back from somebody from Oak Brook Terrace that I know to find out if they would like to partner to extend the trail south along Summit from Ardmore to Reardon to Summit and then continue south and make whatever connections they think may be advantageous to them. So I'll get back to you next month on whether that's a possibility and whether we can incorporate it into the Ardmore portion of the comprehensive plan.
I'll be interested to hear what happens. Thank you.
Okay, so you're saying Reardon between Villa and what? I'm sorry.
And Ardmore.
Ardmore.
Ardmore, okay, perfect.
All right, item 5D, legislative update. I'll make this brief. I just put this on the agenda because I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of this blog post that the Active Transportation Alliance released about a week ago now. It just outlined, I can send the link to the rest of the board, but it outlines the Sustainable Transit for Northern Illinois Act, which is what the Senate passed at midnight on the last day of the spring session or whatever. It's, as far as I can tell, very similar to the Metropolitan Mobility Act. But the reason I brought it up here is they're encouraging people to reach out to their legislators to encourage them to have a spring session to pass this bill out of the House. So that we can address the fiscal cliff that we've been facing for
Do you have a bill
while
number?
now. Yeah, it is HB 3438, Amendment 3. And it's called the Sustainable Transit for Northern Illinois Act.
Also, this is Commissioner Moore, I would encourage everybody to follow up, go to the ilga.gov website and see if you can track the bill and fill out a witness slip for it. Contact your representative in our area, which is Diane Claire Sherlock, and your office will follow up. Most of the stuff that ended in that session is going to be held over for the fall veto session. And there's a reluctance for downstate, electeds to pay for anything having to do with transportation that doesn't affect them. So.
Which is a fair
Right,
criticism.
but I don't know the
But
particulars of the bill, so.
where to go to fill out witness slips?
ilga.gov, and there's a tutorial if you do a web search on how to fill out a witness slip. It will give you what boxes to check. And there's a place where you can just enter that bill number, HB 3438, and you can track and see where the progress, who's sponsoring it, who's not.
Yeah.
If you find someone who's not sponsoring it and they're in your area, you might want to call them up and encourage them to, because all these people are going to be running for election again next year, and
Yep.
they want to keep the voters happy.
Well, regarding the downstate elected officials, personally, I would love to see more transit options available for downstate as well, and I would be happy if there was a bill passed that funded those as well as Northern Illinois, but I am skeptical that those downstate electors would have different opinions of that bill either.
They usually put something in the pot for them.
Oh, we're not in a meeting still.
We're
still
in meeting, yeah.
Yes.
But you're welcome to.
It's
Sit
okay.
down.
We'll start with the donuts now.
Okay.
Moving on to item 5E, DuPage Rail Safety Council update. Commissioner Amore, do you have?
Quickly, I did not attend Saturday's meeting with other commitments. However, we were able to add August 13th to the Metro Safety Blitz schedule for Villa Park. I'll have more information for the
17th, you said?
August 13th. At the Metro Station, it's the morning rush hour. I've gotten full cooperation from village staff, police, fire. Public Works is going to be, out there making sure everything's in Parks and Rec, everything tidy. So I'll have more information. I'll reach out individually if we need volunteers for passing out safety information.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Wagner, is there an opportunity for us as commissioners to participate?
Absolutely. If you show up at 5:30 and on that August 13th, it's a Wednesday, we'll have something for you to do.
I will hopefully be going to work that day.
Yes.
But, I will
Well,
see you at the train
Say, yeah,
station.
we'll have something to do.
So get there early and work for an hour and then go to work.
There you go.
You know,
Just hope there's not a village board meeting the night before.
Yeah, right. Woo,
all right,
okay.
thank you, Commissioner Morey. Item 5F, community outreach. Is there any community outreach you wanted to discuss tonight? I didn't have anything.
Do we want to, well, we can talk about it in July, the bike valet.
For Brewfest?
Yeah, Brewfest. I mean, we get some time to.
Yeah, I think we can discuss that at the next meeting.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, and I have some, I can update you on some
All right.
stuff. Well, you'll hear a little bit at the EPC, so.
Okay.
All right. Lastly, we'll move on to item 6, commissioner comments. Start on my left with Commissioner Amore,
No comment, thank you.
Commissioner Greco,
None?
Commissioner Wagner.
I have no comment.
My only comments this evening are that I don't know if we'll have another opportunity to say this or not, but serving as the chair of this commission, it's been a pleasure to work with all of you. I appreciate all the passion that you bring to making this community a better place for pedestrians and cyclists. So thank you for all that you've done.
And transit users.
And transit users.
Don't forget the transit users.
Even before I served on this commission. So thank you.
And Commissioner Wagner, I just want to say that I appreciate your leadership and everyone on the subcommittee's hard work. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 7, Commissioner Mori,
Motion to close?
is there a second?
I'll second.
All those favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
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 All right, we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:02 p.m.